The race is still on for Newcastle's Lord Mayor. Late this afternoon, current Mayor John Tate was leading the count with 32% of votes, followed by Aaron Buman and Marilyn Eade neck and neck with 18% apiece. The numbers sound better than they actually are for the incumbent. Today, he told NBN News it was too close to call. In Cessnock, the ALP's Bob Pinsent looks likely to be elected mayor. He's got 32% of the city's first preference votes, followed by Greens candidate James Ryan. And while counting continues tonight, Greg Piper has already claimed victory in Lake Macquarie. The state member for the area has scored a huge 60%, or 58,836 votes, safely topping John Buckley and Suzanne Pritchard.
It's a good result. A lot of people had been asking the question, and the Labor Party particularly had been labouring the point as to whether or not I could do both jobs, and saying I couldn't. Well, I think the facts have spoken for themselves.
In Maitland, Peter Blackmore was overjoyed with news he'd obtained 51% of ratepayers' votes.
I feel wonderful. It's a great feeling when you know that people have put their confidence in you based on the role that you have done and the way that the city has been going.
The poll putting him just over 10,000 votes ahead of his nearest contender. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
They weren't exactly reaching for the champagne, but the Jets felt they went a long way to restoring pride in their shirt during last night's grudge match.
Well, as much as the game against Melbourne was an un-Newcastle display, I think last night's game was a really Newcastle display.
Just 12 seconds in against Sydney, and old teammates were at each other's throats. Tarek Elrich giving Mark Bridge a welcome back. Former Jet Stuart Michalek wasn't missed either, as mini battles raged across the park. Positive signs too from marquee man Edmundo Zura, who enjoyed his best game since arriving. There was more from the Ecuadorian in the second half as Newcastle grew in confidence. Signing up on Friday, Daniel Piorkowski was spilling blood for his club just 24 hours later, care of John Aloisi's stray elbow. He wasn't the only one to see red. Mitchell Prentice sent off for a second offence, but it was the reaction of Jade North that caught his coach's eye.
He stepped in for his mate. He ensured that no one was going to do something untoward one of teammates, and that's a good sign.
One that suggests his captain remains committed at Newcastle despite the disappointment of a failed transfer.
The search for the missing plane and its 3 passengers began at daybreak, with Australian Search and Rescue coordinating 6 helicopters and 3 planes to look for the Cessna 206. 39-year-old Scott Menrath had only recently bought the plane after getting his pilot's licence. He was flying the light aircraft back to Brisbane with his 38-year-old wife and her 7-year-old son. The single-engine aircraft left Bankstown Airport at 8 a.m. yesterday. It then travelled to Scone Airport to refuel at 9:40. The family was last seen there by Neville Partridge, who said weather conditions were severe.
The wind shear and turbulence was quite extreme, and not a good day to be out there.
The aircraft was reported missing last night after it failed to land at Archerfield Airport in Brisbane. An NRMA care flight crew spotted the wreckage in rugged terrain on a mountain 55 kilometres northeast of Scone just after midday. A doctor on board the helicopter confirmed all 3 passengers died instantly when the plane crashed. The wreckage was spread across a large area. New South Wales Police will now conduct an investigation into the crash, but say it could take days to recover the bodies due to worsening weather conditions. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
An overwhelming 75% of voters in the Port Stephens Shire have embraced their right to popularly elect their next mayor, but they won't have the chance to do that until the next local government elections. Ron Swan isn't sure he'll be running for mayor in 2012, but says the public's new responsibility is one that shouldn't be taken lightly.
They need to be very mindful whether the person has the business management skills, etc., and the time to be a mayor, and they're the considerations they've got to look at very, very seriously.
In the meantime, the mayor is expected to be elected by fellow councillors next month. Final postal votes were being counted in Newcastle today, with no clear majority vote for the top job.
For the mayor, we'll be doing distribution of preferences tomorrow, and that will determine the outcome because you need to have 50% plus 1 in order to get the majority vote for the mayor. So once preferences are distributed tomorrow, we should have a result.
At this stage, John Tate has 32% of votes, followed by Aaron Buman and Marilyn Eade, both with 18%. Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
It served the area for more than 100 years, and now the Dunolly Bridge is getting a well-earned makeover. In a jointly funded venture, Singleton Council and the state government are spending just over $1 million, replacing its timber approaches and tidying up messy Telstra cables. The historic structure was closed in August, and repair work is now underway.
We're on track with the works as it appears at the moment, and the community have been very good in their understanding that we need to do this works to the bridge.
The bridge's closure means people travelling between Singleton Heights and Singleton will have to use the nearby Hunter Crossing Bridge.
That will be their only way to get through to the Heights at the present time, unless they go right out of town.
It's expected to add an extra 7,600 vehicles on the Hunter Crossing Bridge every day. Traffic lights on Bridgeman Road have been altered by the RTA to cater for the influx. Dunolly Bridge is due to reopen just in time for Christmas on December 19. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
For something that is largely preventable, the statistics behind stroke are alarming. 630 people die directly from stroke in the Hunter, New England area, and more than 2,200 are hospitalised each year.
Stroke's a very common problem, unfortunately. It's our second leading cause of death in some series, sometimes third leading cause of death, and leading cause of long-term disability in the adult community.
A stroke occurs when the supply of blood to the brain is disrupted, and the time it takes to be treated can be the difference between death, severe disability and making a good recovery. 47-year-old nurse Mark Amy had a stroke in February. Luckily, his wife was quick to call an ambulance.
It was actually, it sounds ridiculous, but it was actually a very positive experience because it made me realise I hadn't been to a GP for about 6 years. It made me go and check my cholesterol, blood pressure.
National Stroke Awareness Week's FAST campaign is a simple way to remember the warning signs of a stroke. It asks everyone to be wary of symptoms such as facial and arm weakness and act fast. Having your blood pressure tested regularly by your doctor can also show up any underlying health problems. Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
He's not one to make excuses, and by his own admission, Jade North knows he was flat in the Jets' opening few matches of the season, but he openly rejects suggestions it was from distractions of overseas clubs courting him on transfer deals. The Socceroo and Olyroos defender citing fatigue and illness as the more likely sources.
I counted, I think I've done about 18 flights in the last 6 weeks. Going to the Olympics, coming here, coming there, it's got to take its toll somewhere, and every professional athlete is going to be flat in their career, and unfortunately that was my little period, and hopefully I've got out of that rut.
Proud to see the way his team backed up after that disappointing effort in Melbourne. Their aggressive tactics against Sydney FC have been criticised, but the skipper stood by his boys today.
Within the rules, I thought we were fine, and I thought there was a lot of complaints from the other team, but they're the ones that, they ended up getting the players sent off.
And Newcastle had one of its own helped off. Dislodging 2 teeth and requiring stitching, it was a bloody end to an otherwise positive club debut for Daniel Piakowski, the defender sticking up for the man who collected him today before heading to the dentist for more treatment. On a short-term injury waiver deal, he hopes it won't affect his availability this weekend.
It's 8 weeks. I've got to give it all I've got, make the most of the opportunity and see what happens after there, yeah.
Seeking help from Christians Against Poverty changed Helen Schultz's life.
There was more bills than what there was money to pay. Through circumstances of me being a single mum, I basically found credit cards, which I could manage easily at first, but then it just got out of hand and basically I was in a mess.
Through their free service, the Hunter-based charity showed her how to budget and spend money more wisely. 2 years later, and she's managed to become debt and stress-free. Her whole family is feeling the benefits.
After CAP and them coming in and helping us out, that weight lifted and home life was a lot more pleasant.
Over the past 7 years, CAP has helped 2,500 families, 370 of which are now out of debt. And the organisation's efforts haven't gone unnoticed. Last weekend it was named the New South Wales winner for service at the Small Business Champion Awards.
It's great to just be there helping people and really going for it and have your work recognised.
And that's not their only endorsement.
And I would say to anyone, if you are where I was, call them because they really, really do help you.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
At the last local government election in 2004, 9% of people enrolled across New South Wales didn't vote, and that brought in $1.75 million in fines to the state government coffers. The cash cow could be even greater this time round, thanks in part to Newcastle, where about 20% of people, or 18,000, failed to cast a ballot. And those without a valid excuse will be slugged $55. Newcastle Returning Officer Kathy Cole says it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think we're lucky to live in a democracy, and it's the chance that you've got to choose who is your key players in the city's administration and running the city.
After a full day of counting preferences in Newcastle, the Lord Mayoral result is still undecided, but these are the latest figures. Incumbent John Tate is ahead of Independent Aaron Buman and Labor's Marilyn Eade. A surprise scrutineer for Labor today was former State Newcastle MP Bryce Gaudry. And in the race for Mayor at Cessnock, Labor's Bob Pinsent is ahead of Independent Alison Davey and the Greens' James Ryan. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Settled in 1822, the community of Jerry's Plains has lived with mining giants as neighbours for decades. But some residents say enough is enough. Doyle's Creek Mining is applying for an exploration licence to operate near the village after discovering 100 million tonnes of coal. Locals are concerned about groundwater, increased traffic and noise pollution.
Doyle's Creek Mine needs to have a look at noise, because they do have the blowers and the air vents.
John Maitland from the mining company says the commercial underground mine will include a training centre for students from Hunter Valley Training Company and the University of Newcastle.
And there's no better way of adding to the quality of the training than to have people, again, experiencing the physical conditions in an underground coal mine.
He added that they'll attempt to reduce the environmental impact.
And one of the ways we're going to do that is capture the methane gas that comes out of the seam and convert that to LNG.
The Save Jerry's Plains Committee believe the training school is just a ploy to get the licence and fear it will fall by the wayside. But the company says it will continue while the mine's in operation. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's not every day you see a priceless 1929 Bentley Speed 6 cruising the streets of Newcastle. The classic car's owners, Sid and Nikki Reinhard, arrived in town today as part of their trip from Melbourne to Tweed Heads. They're making the 1,500-kilometre journey to raise money and awareness of breast cancer and the McGrath Foundation.
Just chatting to whoever we can along the way, getting the message out there. And we've planned the trip so that we've gone through as many regional centres as we could.
And they're not shy about shaking their tin. The pair have already made around $30,000.
Throughout the whole regions that we've gone through, we've been absolutely blown away by the generosity of people.
To find out where they'll stop, visit speedontweed.com. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
They don't call it beautiful Broadmeadow for nothing, and as the track got its finishing touches today, those in the know honed in on their picks of the day for the feature Cameron Handicap.
I like Ashikaga. I think he's something special, and I think we're going to find that out tomorrow as he steps up to this grade for the first time. I think Rahib will run a bottle of a race.
Gary Harley also likes Raining to win, but if Rahib salutes, then his owner, Nathan Tinkler, will be presenting the trophy to himself, with his horse stud, Patnack Farm, sponsoring the feature race. Thursday is Newcastle Gold Cup Day, and what a way it would be for this old stager to round out his race career. Now 10, County Tyrone is likely to run his last on his home track.
He's been here, as you said, probably longer than a lot of the staff, but he does command his own little respect, and he's got his own stable that he's always in, and he'll be sadly missed.
He's won over $2 million, but better still holds a special place at the Lees stable. Winning a Sydney Cup in 2006, County also earned Chris his first Group 1 win and claimed his late father Max's last major success.
He's raced at the top level for about 7 straight seasons at Group 1 level, and held his own. He's been a terrific old horse, but it'll be a sad day when he finishes, but all things come to an end.
And just maybe with a fairy tale win. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Two broken thumbs and a knee problem combined to rob Ben Cross plenty of game time this season, but when he did get on the park, he certainly left his mark. After winning his first Blues cap this season, today's selection was a welcome addition to a growing representative resume.
Oh, it's just good to be noticed, and being selectors mine that have been playing well enough to get a start in the Prime Minister's 13. I was expecting a phone call from Kevin Rudd and didn't get it, so...
He wouldn't mind getting one from Kangaroo selectors for the World Cup. Named in the extended squad, a strong showing at Port Moresby would only help the cause.
Not quite international level, but against one of the teams that are in Australia's pool, so that's a good test to see how you go against them too.
Corey Patterson greeted news of his first senior football representative selection whilst on holidays in Perth, but his availability hinges on a meeting in Sydney tomorrow with a neurosurgeon. It's to check bleeding on the brain suffered from head knocks against Melbourne late last month. Initially ruling him out of football for 6 weeks, further scans tomorrow will ultimately make the decision for him.
With his wife by his side and carrying his daughter, Scott Foster walked from Newcastle District Court a free man. Described as a devoted father of 2 and a reliable employee, he was given a suspended prison sentence of 2 years, placed on a good behaviour bond while his licence was suspended for 18 months. The 32-year-old was driving a van through Gateshead when a set of traffic lights changed from green to amber as he approached. The court was told that he was afraid to stop quickly as he had a passenger in the back along with power tools, so he drove into the intersection. He then collided with a station wagon, killing 18-year-old Amy Leroyd. In handing down his sentence, Judge Coulahan today remarked the offender has had 10 speeding offences in 15 years. But he explained that he may well have been momentarily distracted and said he has shown the appropriate level of remorse and now suffers post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Judge Coulahan said it was a tragic accident. The life of a young girl was lost and 2 people were seriously injured, but he explained the moral culpability was relatively low. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
There's no billowing black plume of smoke and we can't see the flames, but with around 50 cubic metres of sawdust burning inside, the silo posed a serious threat. 6 Boral timber workers were evacuated as emergency services rushed to the plant.
We had initial reports of an explosion, which could have been a dust explosion in the top part of the silo. Upon arrival, we found smoke issuing from the silo, which indicated that there was a fire deep inside the silo itself.
With concern there could be another explosion, an exclusion zone was established. But after monitoring the temperature of the silo using thermal imaging, it was eventually deemed safe to move in and start extinguishing the fire.
Once we got our temperature readings and understood where the fire was, we started to unload the product from the silo.
A representative from Boral Timber says it doesn't look like there's been any damage to the structure of the silo and the plant is likely to be operating again from tomorrow. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
John Tate spent the afternoon celebrating his re-election as Lord Mayor for another 4-year term. New General Manager Lindy Hyam was among the first to congratulate Mr Tate, who says he's grateful for the opportunity to stay in the top job.
Well, I feel very humbled by the fact that people have endorsed a third term.
Councillor Aaron Buman gave the Lord Mayor a run for his money. After the distribution of preferences, Buman trailed Tate by just over 3,000 votes. While disappointed, Councillor Buman says he's ready to work with the new council.
Look, I'm pretty excited because there's 10 new councillors. They hopefully won't pick up any of the bad habits that the last council have had. That requires good, strong leadership for the Lord Mayor to make sure that doesn't happen.
And I understand that this is a big task we're taking on. It's not just another term. The city needs a great deal of things done, and I'm looking forward to doing that with the new councillors.
Meantime, Cessnock has a new mayor after independent Alison Davey beat Labor candidate Bob Pinsent by just 400 votes. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Students at Whitebridge and Belmont High Schools are learning skills to get them through life. The RUSH program, which stands for Reducing Youth Self-Harm, is using seminars like this one to teach self-esteem and personal values. But while this group learning can be fun, it's the program's one-on-one mentoring which is digging deeper to the core of modern-day problems. Banker Chris Johnson is using his spare time to mentor Year 10 student Cody Watt.
There's a few times there where it was a bit challenging, but you need challenges to grow, and I've found it to be a really good experience for myself personally. I think I've got more out of the program than probably what Cody has.
Like once a week we see each other and there's someone else to talk to and someone else to have fun.
The Newcastle Permanent Building Society donated $20,000 to the program today to help it expand throughout the Hunter.
We would hope in 12 months' time we're in around 10 high schools mentoring.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The sun poked through in time for the start of the NJC Spring Carnival, but racing headwear is rarely practical. It's about style, and that's in the eye of the beholder. Millionaire owner of Patnack Farm, Nathan Tinkler, would prefer to stay right out of sight, even on days like these. But that doesn't mean his presence isn't felt, as his racing empire grows in the Upper Hunter, with millions poured into both the industry and community.
He's a local boy, he's grown up in the area. We just want to be, fully supporting the local community and the local industry, and no better way than with the Newcastle Jockey Club.
It's been the lasting effects of equine influenza which has kept Paul Perry a bit quiet of late, but a dead heat win in the second and outright success in the fifth was a great way to start his carnival. Always building this time of year with the rich Melbourne Carnival in mind, Newport could go all the way to that first Tuesday in November.
That's the plan, to take him down there. I reckon he'll have to do something a bit special to get into the Cup, but he has got a bit of a build in. He's that sort of horse.
He saddled him up in the Cameron Handicap where Ashi Kargar started favourite, but as the race wore on, it was clear this was heading home with the sponsor, Nathan Tinkler.
Obviously, being my hometown, it's pretty close to my heart, and to win the races, even though I feel like a bit of an Indian giver for sponsoring and winning, but it's certainly very exciting for us, so thank you very much.
March of this year and heartbreak on Sydney Harbour. Peter Eagle and friend Jeffrey Burgess were heading to a ski race when their boat flipped, killing Peter, leaving behind a shattered family, including World Championship winning daughter Lauren, who said at the time she was unlikely to race again. She's now set to return at Newcastle next month.
She rang me only a month ago to say that she wanted to come back up here because this was her father's favourite venue, other than the Long Beach, California race, and she wants to come and do it for Dad.
That's when Newcastle Harbour will host a prelude to the World Championship qualifiers as a part of the Maritime Festival in October. Although unclear if Lauren will push for Australian selection, it appears her return to skiing is being driven by motives other than winning world titles.
Her father was planning, before he was tragically killed, in trying to break the record from Sydney to Newcastle, which Lauren was going to go for, and at this stage she still plans on doing it.
That won't be until around mid-next year at best, so it'll be ski racing on Newcastle before that, where Lauren will be back amongst the best in the country who'll begin pushing for Australian selection. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's the great Australian dream to buy your own home, but turning that dream into reality is getting harder, simply impossible for some. A new report highlights the importance of improving the supply side of the housing market to meet the shortfall. It calls for increased land releases, reduced developer charges and a more efficient planning system.
Another one which is very, very dear to many people's heart is the development approval processes and the complexity, the overregulation, the burdens that are placed on everyone trying to bring houses to market.
Developers say parcels of land are sitting dormant for more than 10 years thanks to local, state and federal government processes. Keith Johnson has 7,000 blocks which could be released tomorrow for first home buyers.
Very frustrating and very unrewarding when you work all these years and you're still battling red tape.
There's no overriding body that says enough's enough, let's deliver affordable homes. It's time for the bureaucracy to make decisions, not more reports.
And due to the delays, developers are passing on the holding costs and infrastructure levies to the home buyers, and that's pushing prices higher. Some argue developers are being greedy and should wear those costs. Dr. Kerry London disagrees.
There's a lot of risk involved in developments. There's a lot of land, there's a lot of holding costs. The delays in the development approval process have to be borne by someone.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It was an opportunity to air grievances, but Kevin Green says his meeting with the Liquor Accord was very positive, told about how alcohol-fuelled crime and assault is decreasing, thanks in part to changes to trading hours. With warmer weather approaching, there were calls for the new minister to reverse the extra half-an-hour extension to a 1:30 curfew and 3:30 closure in Newcastle's CBD. But according to Kevin Green and the licensees, it's here to stay as it stands.
At this stage, I think we'd be going with the reforms as they currently stand. There's been a lot of support from all the representatives within the Accord. They're very pleased with the statistics as they are currently showing.
I think the police are very happy with this current situation, as the licensees are happy enough with where it is at the moment, and I don't see anything changing or any need to.
The new Minister for Gaming and Racing also met with representatives from hunter clubs, concerned about the impact of smoking laws. To combat the losses, many clubs are reinventing themselves as family-friendly places to dine and socialise, shifting roles and changing community expectations. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The Russian Antonov lumbered its way into Newcastle airspace after flying in from Canada. Capable of carrying a payload of 120 tonnes, it's the second biggest cargo plane in the world. Like a scene from the Thunderbirds, the Antonov raised its giant nose section, knelt down on its haunches and lowered its ramp to reveal its precious cargo, the fuselage of an FA-18 Hornet. The RAF will send 10 of Australia's 71 Hornets to Canada for a full refurbishment. This is the second one to be completed.
We'll have its wings put back on, a number of other structural components put back on, and some of the avionics refitted, test flown and back into service.
As well as the multi-million-dollar cost to taxpayers of stripping down the 23-year-old Hornets and renewing every component, the bill for each Antonov delivery is about $1 million. But the Air Force says it's the price of keeping our pilots safe.
Airworthiness is what this is all about. It's a structural refurbishment program that allows us to fly these things safely and within the capability of which they were designed.
The Antonov will return in November and February to pick up 4 more aircraft. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
When someone has a stroke, blood stops flowing to parts of the brain, and that can cause irreparable brain damage. Doctors can administer a chemical to reduce the risk, but under current guidelines only have 3 hours to do it. But that time frame could be extended if studies at the Hunter Medical Research Institute using enhanced CT images are successful.
Doing this imaging, we've come to realise that there are actually a greater proportion of patients that can be saved or can be helped up to 9 hours, and that there are a proportion of patients that arrive within the first 3 hours that we do not actually help and in fact sometimes may harm.
Unlike conventional imaging, these refined pictures show if the brain is still alive and able to benefit from medication, or if it's already damaged beyond any help. Knowing that will theoretically allow doctors to give more patients the blood clot-busting medication and ultimately improve recovery rates. But implementing the research is some way off yet.
It will take years, but not too distant future would probably be able to make an even bigger difference than we are making at the moment.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The Dane showed all the right signs today. Underneath, though, the effects of a knock to the head still linger.
And he's got a mild concussion, so he trained this morning, but I don't think he's 100% right, and it's with something like that, it's not worth taking a risk.
A view coaching staff share when it comes to young defender Ben Kantarovski. He's nursing a knee injury and, like the Jets import, hasn't travelled to Brisbane.
He goes away with the Joeys in a week's time, so he probably needs to be right for that. And so it's just rest more than it's not anything to do with his form.
No such worries for Jason Hoffman, however. After starting last week against Sydney FC, he's in the mix to do so again, this time against the Raw.
I think we can exploit, some of their weaknesses, and especially in the final third with Joel and now Zura. We've got plenty of pace to sort of exploit an ageing Queensland sort of defence.
Zura did just that today, but as his coach went on to show, no one should be taken for granted. The Marquee is yet to spread his wings on the goal-scoring front, but his co-forwards say the pressure's on all of them, and as such have put in that little bit extra this week.
It was mainly just getting sort of with the strikers getting that feel for the goal, just make sure that the confidence is high, and plenty of goals were scored at training.
In matters away from football, the Jets have responded to claims that the Knights don't profit from renting their stadium to the A-League club.
If that's the case, then why can't we sit around the table and say, well, how can we make it work better? If you can't make a profit, maybe we can.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News. After a 2-year wait, the Gold Cup feature, indeed the punters, came back to Broadmeadow for day 2 of the NJC Spring Carnival. Like a breath of fresh air, the Tibby Stakes swept away the cobwebs before the all-important feature. Miss Pageantry pipping may be in a race with few surprises, from the sprinters to the stayers, and there's none more seasoned than County Tyrone. And at this, his last race meeting, he would always be the sentimental favourite.
He's been a wonderful performer for the late Max Lees and of course his son Chris, and any horse who can maintain a top level for every year, and he's in his 10th year, it's a pretty remarkable effort.
Mate, he's won a Sydney Cup, a Metropolitan, a Queensland Derby, because he's a lovely old horse with a great temperament. You can do anything with him.
Anything but win a Newcastle Gold Cup, but what a finish. Another Gold Cup for Gabe Waterhouse, while County Tyrone finished 3rd in a photo.
I knew he'd run a great race. I thought he ran 4th, actually stuck his head out and ran 3rd. Gutsy effort, but that's been his whole career. He's just a real trier.
A crowd pleaser for 10 years, the champion stayer will spend his post-racing days among the crowd, set to take up a post with the Mounted Police Unit in Sydney. Not before an official farewell at Broadmeadow on Saturday week, but today's goodbye will be hard to top. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
Dozens of state and local police officers descended on Medford near Maitland in response to last night's double shooting. They spent almost 12 hours searching homes in Cassia Way, trying to locate the alleged gunman. At 10:15 last night, the 38-year-old man reportedly shot a 36-year-old man and a 27-year-old woman after they arrived at his house and had an argument. Today, the firearms believed to have been used in the crime they discarded on the alleged offender's lawn. Police say the victims were shot as they tried to escape the house. The man hit in the back and the leg, while the female was hit in the back and the arm. They eventually managed to drag themselves to the safety of a neighbour's property, where they were helped by ambulance officers. Neighbours saw the drama unfold.
He pulled himself hand over hand, threw down onto the gutter, up onto the footpath, until he got around to his girlfriend, yelling out, "Where are you, babe? Where are you, babe?" all the time, the whole time. It was really something to see. Could not move his legs, and yet he pulled himself hand up. We couldn't stop him.
A few people were actually walking around. There was people going down, seeing if people got shot, how they were.
The man's partner and 2 children are believed to have been inside the house at the time. Late this morning, police raided the house where they believed the gunman was hiding, only to find it empty. He later sought treatment at Maitland Hospital, where he was arrested and put under police guard. The man is now assisting police with their inquiries. Madeline Bond, NBN News. Tammy Roberts and Nadine Dunbar are disgusted with their insurer. 15 months ago, Amy told the pair their flood-damaged home would be repaired. But since then, work has come to a grinding halt. Floors are mere beams, walls non-existent, and now mould is growing on the ceiling.
The insurance company have now said that they're not going to fix the house. They want to give us a sum of money that I still can't get a builder to put the house back together for.
That offer comes in at around $176,000, a figure they say is ridiculous.
At the end of the day, I want them to fix my house.
If they're not going to give us a fair offer, then fix my house.
In a statement, Amy's public affairs manager said, "I think it's enough to fix the home to what it was, but the case is now before the Financial Ombudsman Service and the decision will rest with them." Meanwhile, single mother Sharon Mantle is at wit's end. Her Hamilton North home has been abandoned by the builders Amy appointed to fix it, leaving it an uninhabitable mess.
All I want is the money to repair it. I can take it in my own hands. I've got people to come and fix it.
And after being contacted by NBN News, Amy made an undisclosed cash settlement offer late this afternoon. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A bright pink apron mightn't be every chef's first choice, but anything goes when you're raising money for women battling breast cancer. A new campaign launched by the Hunter Breast Cancer Foundation wants us to heat up the barbecue and dig deep to support their home help program.
What we want to do is invite all the community to get together, whether it's families, work colleagues, etc., to host a barbecue on our behalf and raise money. And we offer a barbecue pack, and they can really make it as big or as small as they want to.
Every dollar collected will be channelled into services such as cleaning houses, mowing lawns and childminding for local patients and their families. Across town, another initiative was launched, a specialised home care service for those with dementia. Mercy Community Services Choice Support Program allows people in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie to live comfortably in their own homes for a longer period of time.
The walking group, they get exercise, and the research is showing that exercise, both physical and mental, can delay some of the effects of dementia and memory loss. So they get all of these sort of things with our service.
Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
It's a foot on the rear step, a couple of pushes, up onto the seat and you're away, cycling 1880s style. Michael Cowan only started riding the antique bikes last year and is already the Australian sprint champion after winning the Penny Farthing Nationals in Tasmania in February. Next month he's off on a new adventure to cycle 1,000 kilometres around New South Wales and the ACT in a week to raise money and awareness of asthma, a condition he's lived with since age 5.
I still currently have asthma quite severely. I'm reminded that I have asthma every day. So my aim is to keep fit and healthy to combat asthma. The healthier and fitter I feel, the stronger I feel.
Michael hopes to raise $50,000 during the challenge that will see him pedalling anywhere from 60 to 185 kilometres a day. And there's a bit more to consider than riding a modern bike.
Firstly, you've got to remember you don't have any brakes, so you have to look ahead. You have to look at a traffic light, 100 metres away and just wait for the change, because pulling up's a bit of an issue as well. But it's all about control, and I guess that's the same as asthma. It's all about control.
Michael leaves Newcastle on October 20. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The Jets have statistics on their side heading into tonight's clash, winning 4 in a row against the Roar in Brisbane.
I think we just want to get some points on the board. I don't think we're too worried about the record.
It's on the mind of Queensland coach Frank Farina, though, still smarting from Newcastle's domination last season.
We should have taken 7 points from them. Only took 2, and then, as I said, that was the minor premiership for us.
The last time they met in Brisbane, the Jets only just kept their record streak going with an injury time goal.
I think he scored in every game against us. Joel's a good player, he's very busy, he's a handful, he's annoying.
The Jets might say the same thing about raw import Charlie Miller, who, despite being criticised for carrying too much weight, has posted 4 goals in 4 games to set a new A-League record.
He's a danger man, and we've got to look to sort of diffuse him, and hopefully we can come away with a clean sheet.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. A stunning run at Randwick 2 weeks ago sealed win number 2 for Samantha Miss in the Princess Series. And while the 3-year-old is well placed to make it 3 tomorrow, her trainer is eyeing much bigger spring prizes.
Her first aim is the Flight Stakes, which is a fortnight Saturday. It's a Group 1 at Randwick, and after that we'll assess whether we take it to Melbourne for some of the better races.
Preparations too for Gold Coast fillies as NBL side The Blaze readies itself to host the Cairns Taipans tonight, with Newcastle's Ben Melmoth back for another year.
I've been doing it for a long time now, and I still feel like I was a rookie again playing for the Falcons for the first time. It's still very exciting, and just time to get it done. It's ready to go.
It's grand final time in Black Diamond Aussie rules, and unlike last year, the weather looks like playing ball. Newcastle has been the only team to beat Cardiff this season in the major semi, and the Blues will have another job ahead of them at number 1. Also tomorrow afternoon, a grand final spot is on the line in Newcastle and Hunter Rugby, the winner to play Hamilton in next week's decider. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The first of many hazard reduction burns by the New South Wales Fire Brigade began in Bushland today at the Summerhill Waste Depot. Figures released by the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries show 71% of the state is now in severe drought. The Hunter is classified as marginal. The news has some firefighters predicting similar conditions to the deadly 94 season.
We've had probably 4 years of wet summers, which has increased fuel loads, which is going to increase fire intensities for this coming summer. Weather keeps on going like this, it might be a hot, dry summer, so might make it interesting.
Today's burn will protect a housing estate northeast of the depot in Fletcher, but there's still plenty more work cut out for the men in yellow.
We've still got a couple more burns planned for Summerhill Waste, Blackbutt Reserve and Jasmine Bushland.
Lucy Wilson, NBN News. This is one of 4 turbines that will form part of a new gas-fired power station on the Central Coast. Safely unloading the 340-tonne engine while keeping the vessel steady was one thing. Transporting it to its new home is going to be quite another. The operation, beginning at 1 a.m. tomorrow, requires the pull of 3 prime movers, the capacity of 2 14-axle trailers, and the push of another 2 semi-trailers from the rear. The deliveries are so large they'll take up most of the southbound lanes. There'll be 12 of these happening over the coming weeks, all making their way to the Colongra gas site, adjacent to the existing coal-fired Munmora power station. Delta Electricity gained final approval for the project from the state government in September last year. The facility will be connected to the existing Sydney-Newcastle natural gas pipeline and will cost around $500 million. Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
The first few minutes would dictate what this game was all about. Physical and fast with muscle to match. Both sides were given early scares. Jets custodian Ante Kovic cleaning up for his teammates before keeping cool with this hot header. What a save indeed, and what a time to do it. The Jets keeper leaving a lasting impression on national coach Pim Verbeek while haunting Queensland goal-scoring guru Charlie Miller. Early in the second, James Holland serviced Song well, while Kovic continued to torment. Denying the Scottish import 5 goals in 5 games, Kovic kept his clean sheet. His Queensland counterpart couldn't do the same because of who else? This Newcastle's 5th consecutive win in Brisbane, only just.
I'll probably never score a goal like that again.
Big game nerves made for a scrappy start in which the Blues gave Cardiff the lead through an unmarked Jeremy Coulson. Courtney Knight kept Newcastle in the hunt, and while quarter time gave City a chance to cool down, it would be the Hawks to feel the heat. Be it long range or from right in front, Jason Kavanagh scored back-to-back majors. 3 goals in 3 minutes followed for the Blues before captain Marty Dineen kicked Newcastle to a 37-point lead at the main break. The Hawks rallied though. Stephen Conlon did well to get this goal, what would be the start of a fight back, through Luke Orton, then David Flynn. But Newcastle kept kicking ahead, handing Cardiff just its 2nd loss of the season.
Now she's going better than Stripper. Down inside the 200. And this outstanding filly, Samantha Miss, has come from second last. She's rushed to the lead and she'll make it 4 group races in a row. She's a beauty. Samantha Miss wins it from Camilsey and Glowlamp. Then Portillo.
Close to 120,000 people went to the polls in Lake Macquarie, and their votes will usher in a new era for the city's council.
We have 2 Liberals. I don't think we've ever had 2 Liberals before. We had 1 before. The Labor Party have been reduced from 5 to 3 councillors, and the Greens are represented on Lake Macquarie Council for the first time ever.
It will be interesting to see how the new mix deals with the transformation of Lake Macquarie, in particular the redevelopment of many of the city's urban centres.
The reality is, however, that we can't stop population growth. It is coming whether we want it or not, and it's about managing it.
But the New Look Council isn't just about a change in party representation. There's also been a real injection of youth. The youngest councillor is now just 19 years of age. Stand-up comedian Hannah Jassain makes her local government debut in the North Ward.
She's certainly got an interesting learning curve in front of her, but she'll bring a certain mindset and representation of a council.
The younger flavour continues with Daniel Wallace and Anthony Burt in the West Ward, and Laurie Coughlin and Kay Fraser have been returned in the East, along with 2 new faces. Meanwhile, the makeup of Newcastle City Council is expected to be finalised tonight. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
They say winter swimming is more about the social aspect than it is the competition. But when former Olympians like Malcolm Allen are in the mix, only the serious stand a chance, and it would be a Maroubra clubmate to pull off what was an upset in the Open Men's 50 freestyle final.
Third year doing teams and first individual, first win, it's awesome.
Indeed, it was a carnival of firsts. After 32 years, women have been controversially accepted into the Winter Swimming Association. For Debbie Watson, the former captain of the all-conquering Olympic water polo team in 2000, another gold medal in another discipline.
I think it's the first swimming race I've ever won. I might have got a couple of places back in the old school carnival days, but they were a long time ago. So no, it was good, and it wasn't. The time was okay too, considering I don't do a huge amount of swimming anymore.
The school teacher then anchored the over 40s women's relay final to help Harwood win the race and club championship. Fighting for a podium finish overall, it was hard to miss the Cronulla Polar Bears in what was a breakthrough win in the Open Men's Relay final.
It's a fantastic feeling. I've been with the Bears 12 years and never won a relay premiership, so it's been about 15 years all up apparently.
And mission accomplished too for host club the Stockton Jelly Blubbers, out to raise awareness of prostate cancer, which hit one of its own.
Fortunately, it's come through very well. But yes, that is very close to the hearts of all of our members.